Esperanza. First of all, thank you for being here. And I want to thank your translator, whose name I forget. Tell me. Cassandra, the translator. Esperanza understands us perfectly, but she's going to speak in Spanish because that is her language and she wants to. And we welcome that. Thank you, Esperanza. Esperanza is quoted, I think, more than anyone else in my book. This space called blockadia that we've been talking about, the blocking of the pipelines, this movement that is really about keeping the carbon in the ground. That movement wasn't born here. And in the book I talk about if we wanted to just choose a place, maybe we could say Nigeria, the Niger Delta, and the Ogoni fight against Shell that kicked Shell out of their territory. And people think that they didn't know about climate change. The Nigerians in the 90s called one of their largest protests Operation Climate Change. I learned that actually by reading a book that Esperanza helped edit. and of course, the fight in Ecuador to keep the oil underground in the Amazon has been at the forefront of the keep the carbon in the ground model. And one of the quotes that you have in the book is very simple: why should we sacrifice new areas if fossil fuels should not be extracted in the first place? Which is a very good question. The concept of climate debt says, yes, let's leave the oil underground, but in leaving the oil under the Amazon, that should be recognized as a contribution to the world. And there should not be a choice, a false choice, between the right to education, the right to health care, the right to jobs, the right to electricity, and keeping that carbon in the ground. Can you explain to us the concept, as you see it, of climate debt and ecological debt? And I guess I'll put the question to you another way, which is, Eduardo Galeano talks about how we live in a world upside down. Could climate change turn the world right side up?
Muchas gracias. Efectivamente voy a hablar en español. Espero hablar lento porque sé que muchos entienden y para el resto Cassandra me ayudará.
Thank you very much. I'm going to speak in Spanish, and I will speak slowly because I know many of you understand Spanish, and for those of you who don't, Cassandra is going to help you out.
Primero, creo que vale la pena refrescar el concepto de la deuda ecológica. Efectivamente, la deuda ecológica es esta deuda que en general uno tiende a pensar, se refiere a la deuda del norte con el sur, esta deuda que viene de los procesos de colonización o de los procesos de intercambio desigual. Pero no solamente esa es la deuda ecológica. La deuda ecológica realmente también es esa deuda que el conjunto del capital global tiene con la naturaleza.
First of all, I'd like to quickly do a recap of what ecological debt is. Ecological debt is much more than just the historic debt of the North to the global South. Certainly, it also includes the debt that the process of colonialism has generated and continues to generate, as well as unequal and unfair trade. But it's larger than that. Ecological debt also encompasses the debt that capital, das Kapital itself, has with nature.
Y si pensamos en qué es lo que ha sostenido ese capital y ese modelo capitalista finalmente, si buscamos un poco, si rascamos un poco en lo que está por detrás, vamos a encontrar probablemente al petróleo como el corazón de todo ese proceso de acumulación. Por esto, cuando queremos hablar y entender qué es la deuda climática, qué es la deuda ecológica, finalmente podemos remitirnos a cómo el petróleo ha configurado todo este proceso, todo este capitalismo global. Y solo allí podemos entonces mirar cómo detrás de las guerras, detrás de la corrupción, detrás de los procesos de chantaje, detrás de las enfermedades, detrás de las ciudades gigantescas que acumulan basura y que se llenan de carros, está siempre el petróleo.
So, when we think about what has really sustained capital and the capitalist model, and when we start to scratch at it and try and get to the nitty-gritty of it all, we rapidly come across oil. Oil as the heart, the pulsating heart of the process of accumulation of capital. And oil is also what is really the subtext of ecological debt and climate debt. And of course, oil isn't just about accumulating capital. It's also very much the subtext of war, corruption, geopolitical blackmail, lack of healthiness and health care, and these giant, unsustainable, monstrous cities full of garbage.
Y entonces si queremos hablar de la deuda climática y de qué vamos a hacer para enfrentar el cambio climático, tenemos que cerrar la tapa. Tenemos que dejar de extraer el petróleo y empezar a pensar en cómo podemos liberarnos del petróleo, no porque el petróleo en sí mismo sea malo, sino porque se ha configurado en una forma de extracción y de consumo que no respeta los ciclos naturales, del planeta. ¿Queremos enfrentar el cambio climático? Tenemos que resolver el hecho de que no podemos seguir extrayendo, consumiendo, buscando más petróleo, sacrificando más territorios.
So, if we want to talk about climate debt and how we are going to address climate change, well, we got to stop burning oil. We need to free ourselves from the addiction to fossil fuels and oil. It's not that oil is bad in and of itself, but it is the extractive model and the model of consumption of oil that doesn't respect the natural cycles of our planet and just cannot continue.
Para los pueblos indígenas, el petróleo es la sangre de la tierra. Para muchos pueblos en el Amazonas, el petróleo representa la sangre de los antepasados que volvieron a la tierra y que se convirtieron en piedras. Y hay particularmente un pueblo indígena que piensa que el petróleo es la sangre del coancoán, se llama coancoán, y el coancoán es un ser subterráneo que tiene un pene gigante con el que hace el amor al conjunto del resto de la tierra. Para ellos, matar el petróleo es matar propiamente la erótica del planeta.
So, the Amazonian worldview of oil is that oil is the blood of Mother Earth. And many indigenous peoples of the Amazon also feel that oil is the blood of their ancestors who have gone back to the earth and become stone and oil. And for other indigenous peoples, oil is the blood of Quan Quan, who is a giant underground being with an enormous penis that makes love to the rest of Mother Earth, and that oil is in fact very erotic stuff.
Finalmente quería plantear que el tema del petróleo no solamente nos obliga a pensar en el tema de la deuda ecológica o de la deuda climática, sino en otro tema central, que es el de la democracia. de tiempo en tiempo, en nombre de todos, se toman decisiones. De tiempo en tiempo nos invitan a votar por un candidato que probablemente nos va a defraudar, con seguridad. Pero las decisiones verdaderas, esas no nos toman en cuenta. La decisión de si queremos seguir sacando petróleo, si queremos sacar el petróleo de Alaska, si queremos el fracking, si queremos envenenar el agua con el gas del fracking, esas decisiones no nos toman. En esas decisiones no somos parte, somos solamente utilizados con el argumento de la necesidad, con el argumento de que debemos hacer sacrificios. Y entonces yo solo termino diciendo que en el caso del Ecuador, sobre todo los jóvenes, y aquí hay jóvenes yasunidos, invitaron, están por ahí, invitaron a la sociedad a decidir sobre si queremos o no sacar el petróleo, si queremos sacrificar el Yasuní. Los muchachos recogieron millares de firmas, los muchachos lograron la meta, la mayoría del pueblo ecuatoriano se pronunció por no querer sacar el petróleo.
So lastly, I'd just like to say that, of course, oil has a great deal to do with ecological debt and climate debt, but it also has a great deal to do with democracy. From time to time, we go through the charade of supposedly participating in decision-making. We vote for a candidate who, most times than not, disappoints us. But the real decision-making, we're not invited to participate in. And the real decision-making is about whether we drill for oil in Alaska, whether we frack, whether we poison our water with fracking. These are the real decisions, and we're not making them. We're not participating in those decision-making processes. We're just being used in those processes. So whether we need to drill in Yasuní, whether we should sacrifice the most biodiverse place on Earth, those decisions we have been marginalized from. But I'd like to conclude by saying that specifically in the case of Ecuador, we're very blessed this evening to have the youth of Ecuador with us who organized as Yasunidos, which is a play on the word of the Yasuní National Park, and it also means united for Yasuní. And these inspiring young people invited the Ecuadorian society to make the decision about whether to extract oil from the Amazon and Yasuní, and whether we should destroy Yasuní. And so they collected hundreds of thousands of signatures and organized a referendum. And the majority of the people of Ecuador said, no, let's save Yasuní.
Gracias.